Good evening. Welcome to Lower Frederick Township's Board of Supervisors work session for July 22nd of 2025. Please let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. The board is all in attendance, along with our township manager, solicitor, engineer, and our chief of police. Township meetings are recorded for the purpose of preparing the minutes, and the recording is destroyed after the minutes are approved. The meeting will be posted online on the township YouTube channel. The link can be found on the Board of Supervisors page on the township website. It is requested that all persons wishing to speak before the board shall state their name and address and the subject matter upon which they wish to speak for the record. In the interest of facilitating the business of the board, all persons addressing the board shall be limited to 3 minutes unless such time is extended by the chair for good cause. Individuals are requested to remain in their seats and to respect when other persons are speaking. The Board of Supervisors will provide a reasonable opportunity for citizens to comment on any non-agenda items after all the agenda items have been addressed. But prior to the adjournment of the public meeting, we had an executive session this evening at 6:30 to discuss legal matters and real estate. Okay. First item on our agenda this evening is Township Code, Use and Occupancy Inspection Ordinance Draft Discussion.
So what you have before you is a draft ordinance that amends our current basic. So what? Oh, okay. What you had from last meeting.
Thank you.
My computer's not up yet, so I can't see what's on. Was an amendment to an existing ordinance regarding use and occupancy permits. So this ordinance has been revised to take into account a state statute that was enacted several years ago regarding the issuance of these permits in conjunction with the transfer of property. We have also revised the ordinance to better reflect the way these various permits are dealt with under the UCC and our zoning ordinance. Essentially, you have 4 separate types of permits. You have zoning permits, you have building permits, and those are permits that are issued prior to work being done. And then you have certificates of occupancy and use and occupancy permits. The certificate of occupancy is a permit specifically discussed in the various building codes, and that is issued after the work is complete and it's been shown that it meets the building code requirements. The use and occupancy permit is issued when everything is complete and all ordinance compliance has been met. So not only building codes, but also it's going to be, zoning, stormwater, saldo, everything, is good to go. That's when the UNO should be issued.
Are you referring specifically to new construction?
We're referring, no, it could be, this could be new construction, it could be reconstruction, it could be an addition, it could be renovation. It also, zoning permits are issued when there's no work undertaking. If someone is just establishing a new use on a certain property, let's say you already have a storefront and you're changing that use from a restaurant to a shop, well, in that case, you're probably going to have construction. But if you're changing it from one type of retail to another, you might not have any construction inside or construction that doesn't require building permits, but you're still going to need a zoning permit. Thanks.
So is there some sort of, excuse me, was there some sort of framework around which we were originally going to have the discussion this evening? I know that we were kind of wondering about what was going to be entailed with that. I mean, Peter's given a nice overview.
I was anticipating a updated draft for the board for the review.
Okay. Did anybody on the board have anything that they wanted to specifically discuss about the use and occupancy? I mean, I came with notes, I can talk about it, but
Were we going to talk about the lateral inspection?
I think that's the one thing that needs to be updated in the ordinance. I think, if I remember correctly, that was discussed 2 weeks ago, two meetings ago. And it was decided that this is something the board wanted to do. And so we've been looking to look at other ordinances that have that language. We need to add that to there. We also were waiting for our code enforcement officer or building code official to get back to us in regards to the resale inspections. They did get back to us yesterday. I had a chance to look over that, and so that's the other thing. We need to adjust basically the checklist for the resale inspection based on, some of the comments made by Vinnie in regards to that.
so I think we agreed that we would be doing lateral inspections, but did we decide like what that was going to look like? Who was going to do it? Or did we get into the weeds on that? Or am I just not remembering?
We did. Basically, it would fall on the seller. They would get a certified plumber, and that's what that ordinance would speak to. That's got to be a certified plumber. They televise it. They provide they provide the video to the township. So, I think we were kind of modeling it off of how Schwenksville does there, especially since, as we've pointed out, we have Lower Frederick residents who are already going through that with SBA. So that was kind of how we were going to model how we were going to like the application and stuff like it.
So I know you're waiting for, you got your comments back from Vinnie. I think everybody pretty much wants to make sure that this is going to be the absolute minimum required, that we're not,
The problem with Schwenksel is they have a lot of clay pipe, where we have all the modern plastic pipe. So clay is more to break than plastic would or leak with the fittings.
And as we've, and also obviously as we've started our I&I project, which is just videoing the main, that's kind of how this will all kind of piece together for us to be able to, if that video comes up and that lateral's damaged, then, that property owner's is responsible for that repair, as opposed to, it's staying in disrepair and, we're getting water infiltration or. And then I guess, are you also speaking to like the inspection part of the UNO, or is this just? But that would just be part of the UNO process, like the.
right. So I guess we have to wait to see what Vinnie had and before we carry on with that discussion, unless anybody else here has something we wanted to add to this? Or we knew it was on the agenda, didn't have anything you wanted to bring up in particular?
No,
Yeah,
I agree. I think we have to wait for the updated inspection sheet, the updated ordinance, and then we can have a proper discussion.
Go ahead, Terry.
that makes sense. I mean, again, I think for me, it's working backwards from the checklist or whatever the homeowners are going to have to deal with. No one's going to read the ordinance. They're going to see the checklist. And I would like to understand, how are we actually going to do this checklist? Is it someone from the office? Is it Vinnie? Because we have a couple examples, one about 20 items, one about 44 items.
Right.
One's not great. That's a lot of items to cover. And then also, I mentioned in the last meeting, just to make sure that when people are doing a themselves to themselves deed transfer, this shouldn't be this UNO. So how do we can we separate that from this ordinance?
I think we actually already added that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That language was in the draft.
Okay.
And as far as the inspections, I mean, that is something I did at my previous stop. So it could be somebody from the office, or we could have IZED do it, but that's in the spirit of the safety checklist. That's, you don't need to be a building inspector to be doing those inspections.
I mean, we have a form that we used in the not-so-distant past, so can we look at that as well?
Yes.
I think I might have brought it up, but I'm not recalling, on the resale, where it switches from, I think I might have recalled asking for emergency contact info to funnel over to our police department for emergency management.
I don't remember that.
And I probably didn't ask.
I don't remember that being a statement.
I mean, we are talking about a tenant registry.
Right.
So, and that's one of the purposes of that registry, just so we know who's, living in a various rental units. But I don't think we've ever had a discussion about owner-occupied units.
Okay.
I think basically the thought process there is if we need to, we can go online and figure out, who owns it.
Okay, thank you.
And we were going to do something, we split the rental from this, unlike when we presented it last year, it was combined, so.
So would rental be the next thing we're going to discuss so that we can wrap
Rental,
this up?
actually, property maintenance.
Oh, it's going to be under property maintenance?
Well, that,
No, but property maintenance is kind of integral with this, so we probably need to discuss that first.
And then go into the rental?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question about things like the sewer lateral. If a home turns over, like in a year, is there some kind of time frame for these? So it's not too onerous? Like, I mean, how often, should it be at least 3 years, 5 years?
so that would be one of the things in the model ordinance that the board would have to decide as far as if it's had, if it had a sewer, a lateral inspection done the right way, what kind of shelf life that has. And I think the one I provided, Peter, I think it was from Lower Providence, I think they gave 3 years.
Because as Terry Sachs said, excuse me, that we have plastic pipe, we don't
Yeah.
have clay pipe, so it has a different shelf life. So,
Yeah, no, and that would be, so that'll be one of the things that you got, the board will have to decide how long do you want that inspection to be good for.
When they're inspected, they're air tested. So those lines hold air. So I'm just telling you, it's not like a clay or a terracotta pipe. Nothing. You're talking like 4 foot lengths to, you're dealing with plastic 13.6.
So we probably could extend that duration if an inspection's been done, I guess. Assuming there's not a bush growing in between the.
I think the biggest problem you have is where you connect, where the standpipe is out by the street. A lot of them caps are broke off. If you're getting infiltration, you're getting a lot of it there. I've seen a lot of them broke right off.
Yeah,
Nobody goes and looks at them. Nobody inspects them. They're broke off all over.
When did plastic pipes come into use?
It started plastic pipe when they done Spring Mountain, right?
Like the 90s?
They've had plastic pipe for a long time.
yeah, that was like the early 80s.
80s?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, you can put in plastic pipe, but if it's not done right, if the soil isn't right, if things shift, it'll break. So, yeah, I agree with Terry. If you test it and it tests good and it's plastic, you probably don't need to go back and test it right away. But just because it's plastic doesn't mean there may not be a problem, is what I'm trying to get at.
we're just
I've
gonna
seen
have
an
to-
awful lot of
we'll
plastic
have to-
pipes that have broken over the years because the ground has shifted or wasn't prepared
Ground
properly
shifting
when the pipe
roots,
was in
I mean,
there. Right.
generally, like, and I think, I know that happened to my
Right.
azalea bush that was there for
Sure.
20-plus years.
We'll just have to nail
Right
down
through.
the timeframe.
Yes,
Okay.
but that'll be one of the main things coming out of that model, like that ordinance.
Okay, does anybody have any other comments on this subject? Okay. Up next on our agenda this evening is PC request, Village Mixed Use Zoning District discussion.
Oh,
I'm sorry, there's a
sorry.
question on Zoom. Becky. Thank you.
Go ahead, Becky.
Hi, Becky Goshenerd. Can you hear me? Good. Okay, I just had a question in general. When we're talking about resale inspections, are you just going to be updating the residential resale inspections, or will it include commercial resale inspections, like slash change of tenant as well?
Right now, it does not.
All right.
Okay, I just maybe adding that in would be helpful, just because I'm not sure if that's in the code currently or not. So that's something we deal with pretty frequently.
Okay. Thanks, Becky. Okay, the next item on our agenda this evening was the sewer extension for former Riverside connection discussion. That has been tabled for this evening. We are moving on to the PC request for village mixed-use zoning district discussion.
Okay, so discussions by the Planning Commission over the Zieglerville Village occurred at the end of 2024. It was centered around, what the group envisioned to what Zieglerville Village, located primarily in the township's village mixed-use zoning district, should look like. Essentially, I think it falls down to kind of residential versus commercial and what that might look like. And then at its June meeting, the PC decided it wanted direction from the board as what they should potentially focus on regarding the Zieglerville area, or ultimately if the board was comfortable with our current VMU zoning.
Okay, so I was at that meeting. I've actually been at quite a few, the PC meetings where they've kind of been calling for some direction from the board in the village mixed use. And I can tell you that I've read it a bunch of times. And I have to say that the current intent of this legislative intent and our comprehensive plan, the code for the village mixed use doesn't really seem to be aligned with what we have in the legislative intent and the comp plan with the, it doesn't really fit the small town character, and it apparently leaves too many things open-ended for some misinterpretation or not appropriate, let's put it that way. I noticed that most of the points in the legislative intent seem to point mostly for a lot of the properties that are along 73 and 29. And they touch on everything else in E. In the 170/85E, kind of seems like everything's focused on making the main thoroughfare village commercial, but everything that falls behind that's pretty much open up for grabs.
Is there a reason behind why they're going to change it?
Well, I think I kind of clarified that,
I mean,
between the
is there
legislative and,
something coming in that they might have to change it? That it doesn't fit?
I don't know if it's a matter of it's not fitting, I think over in general.
I lived here all my life. Do you know how many times they've changed this to, they wanted a skip back here, which you'd never have a skip back next to a skip back. They tried everything impossible with different kinds of ways to make Siglersville work.
No, I know, I've heard the same
Planning Commission
comments.
has done this time after time.
I think what I'm hearing Noel say is there are some areas in the ordinance that are unclear and could be ambiguous. So I think one of the things that she's looking for is to have it clear and unambiguous. So when people are looking at it, they know exactly what it means. So I think that's a different topic.
Well, also, this code was drafted in 2005. I think a lot of things have happened between 2005, it's been 25 years. So we have a comp plan now that shows that there's a clear direction that the residents want for that particular area in our growth area. And I don't think it's reflected properly in some of the code that we have in our village mixed use. right out of the gate, I mean, you could talk about the village marketplace. It's one of our conditional use requirements. You have to get a conditional use for it. I'm not saying I don't want a village market. I think it's a great idea. Everybody in the comments with the comp plan was looking for some economic development. That was something that I heard from the PC. But the economic development that they're providing, the dimensions that they're providing are not really in line with a small town feel at all. I mean, they're calling for a 50,000 square foot freestanding market and a minimum of 2 other freestanding buildings that could be up to 15,000 square feet. So it really kind of leaves things open where that particular size of a building is not conducive with small town character. That's big box store. That's where that's headed. I don't think that anyone was looking for that. So I would like to give the PC some direction on maybe looking at those dimensions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where I come down is, and I hear this from people all the time, is it would be really nice to have a supermarket in our township. So to have a supermarket, you need that. I don't want to see a Target, I don't want to see a dollar store, but I think if we had a moderately sized supermarket, that would be a huge benefit, and people wouldn't have to leave town to shop. But I want to bring up a different issue. I'd like to see some design standards for the village. So I know Schwenksville is working really hard on having a consistent look. So like all their sidewalks look the same. I'm not saying we have to be onerous to people. Obviously, we shouldn't, be picky. But, if we have one person do one thing and the next person does another thing and the next person does a third thing and the next person does a fourth thing, it just doesn't look nice. So I think some kind of basic design standards for a new building in the village mixed use would be useful, and it would give it a nicer look.
Okay, so getting back to what I was talking about with the village marketplace, again, it's the dimensional standards that concern me. I mean, even with like a residence as 15,000 square foot lots, we have smaller lots in the 2 new neighborhoods that are going in, and I don't think that 15,000 square foot lots in village mixed, I think that's too big. It's way too big, especially if you want something that's more compact, smaller feeling. I'm just saying that I think that these dimensional standards are entirely too high for what I think the feel of it's going to be. I think it needs to be a little bit more compact. I think it needs to be on a human scale. So that's something that I would like for suggesting that the PC kind of look at that. And then I think the one other item is H in the H specifically, uses determined by the Board of Supervisors to be of similar nature and impact to the uses listed in this section, which is in the conditional use. I think that has the potential to have too many loopholes, and it leaves any and all uses open for like misinterpretation and exploitation, whether intentional or not. We might end up with something that might not fit in there. I think we need to maybe kind of tighten that one up a little bit. But those are the 2 things that I noticed.
Peter, have you looked at this recently? I know you're always really good at telling us when something is inconsistent or confusing or could be misinterpreted. Do you have any other things to add?
Yeah, I mean, I have looked at this. I would agree with the assessment that if we're looking sort of like for a village-type center, yeah, a minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet doesn't make much sense for a single-family home. As far as your comments on the design standards, I certainly can, there's several places in Bucks and Montgomery County that has adopted that sort of thing. I have a few clients that have adopted design standards for corridors. They have main, road corridors through their townships, and they've adopted unifying design standards for those. But you can also do that for, a village-type area. One thing to consider, under the MPC, there is a separate chapter on what's called traditional neighborhood development, which, provides with a little more control to the township over aesthetics, for lack of a better term. Generally, aesthetics is frowned upon in zoning, but under traditional neighborhood development is specifically called out as something that you can control for. So, it could be, might be wanting to look at if township does want to revise this, maybe look at that as the basis for a revision rather than just general zoning. And, I think you can do, a lot of work on, trying to, one of the big problems in these areas is always parking. So you always want, provisions allowing for shared parking, provisions maybe allowing for on-street parking to be counted towards the minimum parking requirements, that sort of thing. You want to emphasize mixed use, the classic, retail on the first floor and then apartments on the second and third floor above them. Unlike your traditional suburban development where you have setbacks, in these sorts of developments, you have build-to lines many times, so you have a very uniform, face along a street. Those are all things you can look at, and I can provide both you and the Planning Commission with a lot of examples of this. In fact, Montgomery County Planning Commission has a good guidebook on this sort of, development. I'm sure that John's very familiar with.
I'm going to go from memory because it's been 20 years since I was part of the group that worked on this. I'm thinking maybe the minimum lot size number came about based on an assessment of existing lots in the area and not necessarily to put something in there that was going to make everything non-conforming. I think that's how that conversation went, but that's 20 years have gone by.
So I was hoping maybe Carol, you could answer this question for me. In 17089 and under the dimensional regulations for maximum footprint, for Village Marketplace, it's one freestanding supermarket at 50,000 square foot. Freestanding or other buildings, 15,000 square foot. All other buildings, 15,000 square foot. And within the body of the code that came before that, it says, total building coverage footprints in the Village Marketplace shall not exceed 100,000 square feet. 100,000 square feet of what? Like, is that retail and residential? Is that just retail? And does that take into consideration the size of the lot that we're working with? So it's kind of up in the air, like I don't really know what, 1,000 square foot of what?
Oh, wait, there we go.
Well, for starters, I seem to recall that square footage for the supermarket was a smaller supermarket, that they have larger supermarkets today than that. And then the goal, as I recall, and I'm trying, like Chuck, to remember back 20 years ago, sitting around a table with, I think, Watson at that time, that they were trying to allow that to be an anchor for some other stores to be around it. And they were trying to grant some flexibility so that you could get other stores to come around that
I would love
anchor.
to see that flexibility in here because I don't see it where it's like, you just ask for freestanding stores instead of maybe something more cohesive that looks planned out, not just like scattered all over where you've got parking lots all over the place. Now, I can tell you, 50,000 square foot that's a big building.
Yeah.
That's a big building. I mean, CVS is only 13,000 square foot. We see how big that is. So I don't know. I mean, if you give them 50,000 square foot for a building, they're going to build a 50,000 square foot building. And I just don't think that that's an appropriate size for something where we're trying to get a small town feel.
We-
I'm not,
we
I
could-
I would love to have a
Yeah,
grocery
we
store.
could take a look at that and get you some answers on the supermarket sizes. My understanding is that's on the smaller side for the supermarket, but that's a generalized understanding. So I can get you some more specific information before we get further along.
I know that Renegers, the one that just closed down in, that one was 33,375 square foot. That's a decent sized little store. I don't think we need something that's 50,000, but that's just my personal opinion. I just think that it kind of, in size and scope, if you're trying to blend and homogenize with everything around it, it makes it a little bit difficult to work with it, because then you're looking at a big strip mall, which I don't think anybody's looking for that either.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned about the beginning, the legislative intent is pretty spot on. But when you start to get into the dimensional regulations, and there's one part that stood out of the legislative intent of established standards that allow mixed-use, small-town character, opportunities for affordable housing, and a range of small-scale business and institutional uses. And then you get into the 50,000, 15,000 square foot, knowing CVS, I think you said it's 13,000. I don't see small-scale business renting at 13,000 square foot or 15,000. So I think just keep an eye on small mom and pop, local businesses versus franchise would be, I know we can't put that in here, but think about how we could with some of the things Peter's mentioned that the county may have to offer to promote smaller businesses.
I also think that, reducing the square foot of the commercial is also, it kind of dissuades for more of the chain kind of franchising, which is like I said, you said we can't put that in there, but in those instances, the money doesn't stay here in the community. It goes to a corporate headquarters where smaller businesses tend to have, kind of keep that money within the community, which is, I think, what everybody kind of expressed at the comp plan when you read through the comments. It has that multiplier effect where, that money gets spent immediately, and the people that have those businesses will spend money in the other businesses, and they'll get their marketing or their tax from the people that already live in the area. It keeps it, and it creates that community, I think, that everybody's looking for.
Yeah, I think another area, and I haven't read up on this from our village mixed use, but I know it promotes shared driveways, parking, things such as that, but just parking minimum lots. I think we should keep an eye on that. There's too many areas you drive and it looks like an entire parking lot that's empty most of the time with the business. So if there's any way to encourage shared parking areas, not dedicated per building, I think that makes sense in that area.
Are parking minimums in our code, or is that in building code where it's like, isn't it like 4.5 spaces
zoning
per?
code.
And I'd like to know what rocket scientists came up with that equation.
That is in your zoning code.
Isn't it, so it's 4.5 spaces to 1,000 square foot of,
Probably came from an ITE journal that's now 40 years old.
is there any way to consider maybe reducing parking minimums?
Absolutely, and shared
I would
parking,
be a super big fan of that, I think.
shared parking with different types of uses is an excellent way to do that.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. Okay.
I think we also need to have different types of housing. I mean, in an area that's walkable, we could have, what do they call it? Carriage houses where they share a wall with their garage, but they have small yards. Or, I love the idea of the apartments above the commercial areas, which works really well in the village on the pond.
Al Manning had that plan. And I don't know, because I looked in the code and I'm like, its plan must be a unicorn, because I don't see anywhere in here where it promotes the idea of smaller lots with more compact building, maybe
Yeah.
a couple more levels where it's retail on the bottom and it's apartments above top mixed in with townhomes. And it also fosters an idea of affordable
Or
housing.
doubles, yeah.
Maybe.
So again, I'll just provide you with some historical context here, having actually been on the planning commission. The first time that we took a whack at this, our planner came up with a plan that was pretty heavy on residential. And we ran it by the supervisors, and they hated it. Right, Carol? Is that a good word? They reacted strongly to it. They wanted to see, more business in the area. And so what you see here is a document that's attempted to respond to that feedback and still try to incorporate some living. I thought I spent a lot of time, as did other members, with Al's project over the years on various iterations. I thought that he was doing his best to follow the code, and I think in generally, all of our planners were, planning commission members were pretty happy with what Al was trying to do. The problem that we kept running into is he would change direction, and then we would have to go back and redo things. But I think he was trying to follow this ordinance as best he could, and I think the product that he was hoping to build at one time, we were generally happy with. So, yeah, I mean, I admit that there's some deficiencies here. I wouldn't throw everything out. I think the planning commission had a very big task to rewrite this pretty much from scratch. And, if everything didn't get done right, so be it. And, if we want to revisit it, I'm for it. My personal opinion is there were some of the uses that I think need to be nailed down a little bit more. They're very open-ended. And as much as you love that legislative intent, it doesn't mean shit. Sorry. What means is what's written in the ordinance, not the legislative intent. I sat there in hearings and I was told that by our lawyer. You can write whatever you want legislative. If you don't have it written down here in the code, it doesn't mean anything. So I agree you should write a nice legislative intent, but from a legal standpoint, it was explained to me in no uncertain terms it doesn't mean anything. So I think some of the uses are very open-ended and need to be nailed down. If you want to allow a certain type of activity, put a size limit on it.
I think you're speaking to the conditional use items.
That's right.
Yes, they are extremely, extremely open-ended and open it up right for all kinds of things that are probably not appropriate for what we're going to be looking for. So I just wanted to read this one thing and kind of going through things and trying to figure out what, makes kind of sense. And I thought this was kind of specifically to retail, where new retail development should kind of mimic a traditional Main Street. So like I was saying earlier, everything seems to be so geared on making sure that 73 and 29 looks all, small towny, but everything behind that's open, the Wild West. God knows what you're going to get. But to apply that same Main Street concept even to the roads behind. Compact, multi-story, walkable retail. It's a more efficient use of public infrastructure and services. It doesn't promote the sprawling, auto-oriented, single-story outlets do. And it minimizes public costs of development and other services like our police and emergency services. So I think that that's a good place to start with the PC to, I guess we should drill down on exactly, I think we kind of hit uses in conditional use and the uses permitted with conditional use. And then of course, I don't know, I guess maybe the village marketplace, specifically the dimensional standards, and see how they deal with that. Does anyone have any other comments, any questions?
I have a question. I think you're absolutely spot on. We need to have that village look. But how much of that would go in the ordinance and how much, or what of it could go in the design standards? And I think I'm addressing that to Peter. Because would some of that be addressed in design standards, that village look?
Well,
How do those two things work together?
you need to have an ordinance that enforces the design standards. Usually, you would enact an ordinance and then reference the design standards as an appendix or an exhibit to that ordinance. But if you don't have an ordinance backing them up, they're kind of like the legislative intent. It looks pretty and you can talk to your blue in the face why a developer should build them, but if a developer doesn't want to, they're not going to. If you have an ordinance that says this is the way you got to construct it, then you got some bite there.
So would the design standards be something that could change since they're referenced? So it'd be easy to change the design standards over time if you needed to, since they're referenced in the ordinance? Or they would be
Most
part of the
likely,
ordinance?
yes, but it kind of depends on how everything is worded.
I guess my feeling is that I still support allowing for some sort of anchor store to be there. I think people want to be able to shop locally. I would love that. But I also support the effort to, reduce the parking requirements, whether that's via shared parking or reevaluating this 40-year-old formula, because I think anybody who's built down there or built anything has felt that, we probably have asking for more parking than what's really needed. There have been a couple peak times where maybe it's been a little tight, but it doesn't happen very often. So I think, in terms of having that feeling of sprawl, a lot of that's just because of the parking,
Yeah.
not necessarily because of the building size.
I think the only other thing I thought of, nothing was, it was actually the first thing I had thought of when I started reading it was density standards, percentages of, I don't know if that's something that could be addressed in a reasonable way without doing a big study, but density standards as far as commercial versus residential and open space. Where if you have this much residential, you need this much commercial. I don't know how that's accomplishable, if at all. And I don't know how anybody else around here feels about drive-throughs, but I would like to remove that as a requirement, except if it's for an absolute vital service like a bank. I think that would greatly diminish taking away the small town feel.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, even in a bank, you can get out of your car and go in.
I disagree with that. There are some people who are disabled and can't walk very well. So if they have a drive-in to do their banking, I think that's nice.
And practically speaking, no one's going to open a bank if they can't do a drive-through.
And we have standards for a drive-through that it'd be stacking lane, where it's located, so forth and so on. But to just allow it to be pervasive brings all kinds of things that just don't fit the vision, I think, of what people are expecting in the village mixed use.
So what's next? Are we kicking this back to the planning commission for them to start working on an updated ordinance? What's the next step?
Yes.
I would say a logical path would be to take what we've attempted to communicate with them and for them to formulate in a big picture way, areas of the ordinance that they think they should be working on, and to maybe run that back by us before they spend a lot of time spinning their wheels on something that perhaps the board doesn't really want them to be spinning their wheels on. But that's just my opinion.
So to the point, I've been kind of circling what I think you guys are, kind of important to the board for them to kind of start on. And I think to Chuck's point, then if they want to start, I think the thing is that if there's an interest by the board to take a look at that was first and foremost. It sounds like there is. Sure. So I can take what you guys have talked about and then kind of punt it back to them, and
They can decide what they think is
and
the most
obviously that would
important.
include John as the planner and kind of get that kind of started.
And I think it's important. We've had a few things happen over the years in the VMU, and if I encourage people who have done projects down there, come to a planning commission meeting if it hasn't gone the way you like, or if there's things that need to be changed. It's by no means a perfect document, I'll tell you that. It's the best we did at the time. But, I think that kind of feedback from somebody who's actually tried to do something with shared parking and all those things would be valuable information for the planning commission, because these are things that actually happened.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else to add? If not, I'm going to move on to the next subject. Okay. Phil? Just to let you know, we're just going to keep it brief because this is going back to the Planning Commission. So if anybody has questions
Yes,
about it, they can
that's
take
what
it to
my
there.
comment is in
Yes.
regards to. I would just respectfully ask that John Mikolos be kept aware that we're going to pursue this, and if he could bring to our meeting some material that helps that conversation, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Can we also encourage, maybe have John watch this video? Too, right?
Yes.
As opposed to relying on anybody's notes.
Well, you'll get this posted pronto tanto tomorrow, right?
Yes.
I would suggest, I think that would help him, yeah.
Okay. All right, seeing no other additional questions or comments, we're moving on to PC request for Lower Frederick Connections and Linkage Priorities updated draft.
Okay, so over the years, there's been multiple attempts to create connections around the township. This document came as a result of discussions by our PC regarding trails, sidewalks, et cetera, and connecting areas of the township. The document was created by our township planner, John Miklos, and was recommended for consideration to the board at the June 19th, or by the board at the June 19th PC meeting. The goal being to prioritize connection projects and adding this document as either a separate planning document or adding it to our current comprehensive plan. In turn, the board would have the ability to authorize planning for the different projects, allowing the township to secure funding via grants or fund itself. And then as far as, I've had some conversations with Peter as far as what kind of options we would have to memorialize the documents.
Okay, so I've gone through it. I've lived through it for the Planning Commission meetings as well. This has been our Trails and Connections has been a big project for them. I think they did a really good job on this. And there's a couple things on here that we could hit the ground running sooner than later. But I am interested in finding out how we get this memorialized so we can move it along, get it adopted.
I mean, the easiest way is we can just make an appendix to the comprehensive plan.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about this?
I do. So would this be considered a separate document, or is this an update to something else? What are you going to call it?
Well, that's why it can be a separate document.
No, but I mean, what
Yeah,
are we going to
but
call it?
if you want to make it an appendix to the comprehensive plan, it's just appendix blank to the comprehensive plan, whatever we.
And I guess what I'm asking is, don't we have an earlier connections? Would this supersede it? I mean, it's pretty old, but we have an earlier connections map. So would this
I
replace
don't know
it?
the history here, so I can't, but if we do have an earlier map, then this should replace it, absolutely.
Okay, so I just think that should be clear that this is the most up-to-date connections.
Yeah.
I have a question, if it's all right. So if we were to go with the comp plan, I guess that's an amendment, is that the right word to use, Peter? Well, it's an appendix, but it's an amendment to the plan.
Yeah, you're amending it by adding this as an appendix.
So that would require a public hearing?
Yeah, probably, yes. Advertisement and a public hearing, yes,
Okay.
just to be sure.
Dan?
Dan Orff, Kratz Road. When this came up at the Planning Commission, it was requested at that time that the document that John produced for the township be made available, but to the best of my knowledge, it's never been made available for the public to take a look at. So would it be possible for the connections plans, that document that he drew up, be made available for people in the township to take a look at?
Jason, is this something you can put on the website?
Yes, I was essentially waiting to get it in front of the board, that you guys were okay with the document as a draft. And certainly with it going in as a hearing and stuff, then as part of that process, it can go on the website. We can have a hard copy here and
Okay.
for people to digest that and be present, if they have comments during the hearing. I mean, that's.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Phil Smith, 205 Gerloff Road. I just want to point out that the work done for this revision to the, the connections would be applicable to what we had termed the Zieglerville focus area within the within the connections map. It's not a revision of the entire, but it's a supplemental addition to that that connections map that was adopted in 2015. So, I guess if you're going to look at it, it really does need to be site-specific rather than all-encompassing. Does that make sense?
Yes and no. So you're saying we have a connections priority for Zieglerville?
Yes, it was called the Zieglerville focus area. Yeah, we actually broke the township up into many different focus areas. This work that was done by the PC was directed towards that focus area, not, say, out at Kratz Road or over in Gerloff Road.
Right, and that was
So,
done in 2015?
Yeah, it was adopted in
Okay.
2015,
So
or revised in 2015.
Is there overlap with this?
Yeah,
or-
it's inclusive, that Zieglerville focus area is inclusive in the connections map that currently exists for our township, but it is, we're looking at doing that focus area over rather than the entire connections map at this
Right, well,
point.
maybe you could speak to this, because I kind of don't want to see a whole bunch of things overlapping where we're going in, yeah.
So the full township-wide set of connection maps, which are broken into, I don't know, 4 different areas,
Yeah.
something like that, currently resides in our open space plan.
Correct.
And that we worked on them, and at the time, we didn't have a comp plan. And we thought that was the easiest way to basically memorialize them. So what Phil is talking about is these things, this is a subset of that overall set of connections maps.
Okay, so after hearing your questions about what we're going to do, and then there's this thing, I'm kind of like, well, now we've got I feel like we're going in a couple of different directions, but where we can find it, like this info, is there some way to compile it all in one place?
Well, I have a suggestion. Why don't you just be specific about what you call it? Say, update to the Zieglerville Village portion of the 2015 connections map. Is that accurate?
That would be a more accurate way of describing what
Just,
we're trying
just,
to accomplish
just be
here,
specific
yes.
about what you name that thing. I think that would solve the problem.
Yeah.
It's not an update to the whole connections map. It's just an update to.
This is not just Zieglerville. This
Well, then
is.
what would you
this-
call it?
This is around, I'd call it what John called it.
It's the Lower Frederick
Yeah.
connections and
This isn't
linkage
just Zieglerville.
priorities.
This is
Okay,
around the
just call
township
it-
building. This is
So these are
Delphi
the
to Schweiz.
priorities of all the other stuff.
Sounds like it's kind of different.
Yeah, I guess you could make a case for that, but it was predicated.
I'm trying not
on-
to make this complicated,
Okay.
so I'll,
Yeah, all right.
I'll just,
I mean,
So,
it has a name. I think your idea is keep that name. Don't call it anything about a connections map. And then just put it as a appendix to the, what do we call it? An appendix to the,
Peter was
an
suggesting the
attachment
comp plan.
in the comp plan, yeah.
so my suggestion would be to use our planner's expertise here to look at what we have in front of us, what we'd like to do, where these maps currently reside. There's also got to be some companion text here. You can't just throw this in an appendix, right? To point people to it. So there's a few things that have to happen, but I would think John should be able to look at the state of affairs here and give us a recommendation as to how to integrate this together. I think that's what we should be using his expertise for. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
So I'll do that and bring this back to you guys for kind of the button it up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no other comments, any questions, everyone's on Zoom, the next item up. on our agenda this evening is resolution for non-uniform handbook update adoption.
Okay, so what you have in front of you is, I guess, draft number 7 of the handbook, which has not been updated since the 90s. I hopefully answered any questions the board had from the previous looked at the draft. If the board's okay with the draft, then we would be looking for adoption at the general meeting, and the effective date of this handbook, we'd look at 1/1/2026. So I guess first and foremost, was there any further questions from?
I don't have a question. All my questions have been answered. I just wanted to clarify that like certain other things that the township has, that if in the future something else comes up, like we have a new, I don't know, social media platform or whatever, I'm just making something up, AI maybe, we can make minor updates or additions to a resolution.
Absolutely, at any point in time.
Okay, good. I'm fine with it.
I personally don't have any other questions. What I did have were answered. I'm satisfied with everything that's been changed. I think it's a good update. Does anyone other have any questions or concerns? And we're all satisfied with our new handbook? Terrific. Okay.
August 5th, then.
And we will pass this at the next meeting?
Yes.
Terrific, thank you. Okay, well, that was our last item up on the agenda this evening, and we can adjourn. Thank you. Oh, my goodness, I'm so sorry. I don't know why that went right over my head. I didn't look at the bottom of the page. I'm so sorry. All right, any public comment this evening? Okay, not seeing any. Is there any supervisor comment?
Yes. Reminder, this Tuesday, yeah, right, Tuesday, yeah. July 29th, the Travis Ryder Blood Drive is here at the Township Building, 1 to 7. There's still 9 spots open. Thank you to Becky for posting, getting the word out there. We need 9 more people to roll up their sleeves. So please sign up. If you don't know how to get it, get a hold of one of us and we can help you. Thank you. Third annual.
What are the hours again?
So it's 1 to 7, but I just looked, and 1 o'clock, there's an appointment, and then the last appointment available is 6:15.
Okay. If there is any more supervisor comment, I don't see anything on Zoom. This meeting is adjourned.